Welcome to another episode of The Voices of Boyle. Today I'm excited to chat with Matt Burke, someone who's been a big part of the Boyle community for the past number of decades. From running his barbershop since 1986 to playing guitar with the String Wreckers and being involved with the Boyle Musical Society, Matt's got some great stories and insights to share. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Voices of Boyle, Matt.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have finally twisted your arm into coming on. It's only been about a year and a half.
Only.
But I only found out recently, Matt, that you were originally from Dublin. I thought for some reason your family was always from Boyle. So with that in mind, can you tell me your earliest memories of growing up as a young fella in what I presume would be the 70s in Dublin? I might be wrong, but I think in the 70s.
Yeah. That's a compliment. In the 60s.
Okay.
So, yeah, born in Dublin, but always in a country house, even though we were living in Dublin, because my dad was from outside Ballymote, a place called Bunanadden, which he was very proud of. And my mother was from Knockvicker, which is only 7 miles out the road. So it was, even though we were Dubs, we were always Culchies.
Okay.
And so, yeah, born...
What was the atmosphere like as a kid in Dublin back in those days?
Fabulous. Where we lived, basically you ran out the front door, out the drive, crossed the road and you were in the sea.
Lovely.
So, and that's what we did from probably 2 years of age.
Okay.
And all the kids did.
Yeah. And a typical day for a child in Dublin back then, what kind of activities or games? Tig, hide and seek, the usual kind of crack, is it?
Well, when we were young, it was basically the sea. So I learned to swim in the Irish Sea. I drank half of it, I'd say, in the process. And now hate seawater as a result. But I can swim. But that's what we did. And then when you got a bit older, you got your bikes. So there was a big, huge prom. And you up and down the prom on your bikes and spin around, and that's basically it. It was very simple, but it was good fun. But there was like loads of us. Do you know, like you knew all your neighbours. And everything was, like even going to school, it was probably a good 2 mile walk to school. And we all just walked.
To and then back as well.
Yeah. And it was just like, that's what every kid did.
Yeah.
Like there was no parents. It was just off you went in the morning. You were handed your little lunchbox and off you went.
Yeah.
Winter, spring, summer.
Yeah. Things have changed.
4 years of age, like.
That young?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Even at like 7, we moved down the country when I was 7. And we moved to Corrigan Road. But before we moved, like myself and my best mate, Jamie Cawley, I think was his name, we used to go into town once a week on the bus and go to the cinema, just the two of us. And then there was no McDonald's, so you had Burgerland, which was the predecessor to McDonald's in Ireland anyway.
Mixture of McDonald's and Burger King.
Well, it was just, that's all we knew.
Burgerland.
Yeah, so you got your milkshakes and all that crack. But that's what me and Jamie did once a week, into O'Connell Street, go to the cinema. Star Wars was the big one, the original.
And the parents didn't mind at all in terms of...
That's what all the kids did.
Yeah.
It's just, like, imagine letting a 7-year-old go anywhere in the road now.
Jail.
Yeah, absolutely. And rightly so.
And do you remember then, Matt, any particular event or happenings in Dublin that stand out or left a strong impression for you as a kid?
Not really. I suppose it was just the freedom. You know, it was just, and everybody had the same freedom. You know, it wasn't just our house. It was just everybody. That's what we did. And you knocked round for your mates. And it sounds like we went round in gangs, but we didn't. Do you know what I mean? It was just young kids having the crack.
And then school. What was school like?
School in Dublin was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. There was no stick.
None?
There was no stick.
That was only a rural Ireland thing then, was it?
When I moved to Knockvicker
the stick
and
came
Corrigan
out.
Row, or Corrigan Row first and then Knockvicker. Like when I moved to Corrigan Row, I was like, what's going on here? This isn't what school is like. Like, I used to mitch from school when I was 7, 8 years of age because I was afraid to go in, compared to what I had in Dublin. Like, we had a teacher up there, and like, he had a big leather strap. This is in Dublin now. And I think Mr. MacArthur was his name. A lovely man. But when you got in trouble, now what trouble does a 6, 7-year-old get into anyway? Do you know what I mean? That deserves a slap. I don't know any. I've never come across a child that age that deserves a beating. Like, but he had the big leather strap, and he'd take it out and he'd wag it, and then he'd start smiling, and the tongue would come out the side of his mouth and go, no, we'll put it away today.
It was the threat of it.
It was the threat of it, yeah. But it was never used on anybody. Never.
So then obviously the Sally Rod became known down the road.
When we moved to Carriganroe, it was like boom.
Night and day.
It was just, school was just nightmare. Like myself and my brother Pete used to get slapped because we wouldn't get haircuts.
Really?
Yeah, because when we moved down the country, it was the 70s. Long hair was in. And the country there was a big divide between the country and Dublin living when we moved down in the 70s. So we had denim jackets. Nobody had denim jackets. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of, and we had long hair. Nobody had long hair. So we weren't, I suppose, conforming to how you were supposed to live down here.
So then was there bullying then as a result? In general, maybe not just...
Oh, no, not between the pupils, no.
Right.
No. That was fine.
Yeah.
That was no bother. And again, when you'd be walking, we walked from the pub where we were living to school, probably a 2-mile walk as well. I'm sure there was probably 40, 50 kids walking together.
Mm. So then you've touched on it there, Matt, but you moved down to Boyle when you were 7 or 8, was it?
Yeah, 7. Right. We moved to Carriganroe.
Right. And you were there then, you moved then from there, was it?
So my parents bought the pub in Carriganroe, I think 1973. I'm not great with dates. But I think 1973. So I was 7, maybe 8, but I'm nearly sure 7. And we were there for 3 years. And so we sold the pub about 3 years later when I was 10. And we moved back to the house we had left in Dublin. So then we stayed there for 2 years, and then they sold the house in Dublin, and we moved to Knockvicker, where my dad had bought an old county council house. So he was renovating that. He basically gutted it and put an extension onto it. So it wasn't great timing, because they had the house in Dublin for sale. Dad was down here doing work on the house, getting it ready. And then the house in Dublin sold. So the house down here wasn't ready. So we ended up living in 2 horse-drawn caravans in the garden. Myself and my brother Pete in one, and Mum and Dad in the other. That was very memorable, to say the least. It was great crack when we moved in, but we ended up in it for, I don't know, I think about 5-6 months. I can't be sure how long.
The novelty probably wore off
but when quick. Winter kicked in, holy God, there was no novelty. It was like scraping ice off the inside of the windows, and washing yourself in a basin, dressing yourself under the clothes, the bed clothes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, a no cooker. So campfire to cook, all that. It was basically living by the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, you see, as well, things were different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You did what needed to be done.
Absolutely. There was no choice in the matter.
No, exactly.
That's how it was. And the house got finished eventually, and we moved into the house.
And so then, Matt, obviously most people would know you as Matt the Barber.
Yeah.
So 1986, I believe, was the year you went into business.
Yeah.
In Boyle, opposite the Royal.
That's right.
So you have to train as a barber. Where did that take place?
So I went as far as Intercertain School. I was never fond of school. Well, since I moved down the country, I was never fond of school.
That Sally Rod must have been a hell of
it. It's funny to laugh at it now, and in fairness, I didn't get the worst of it now. I seen other kids getting awful doings.
Mm.
And it's not right, like what went on, but there you are, that's how it was. So I went to Boyle College up here, and I did the Intercert. And then summer holidays, I was working with my dad. He was a plasterer. And then we went back in fourth year. I wasn't going to go back, but Father Lavin at the time persuaded me to go back. And my mum and dad persuaded me to go back to fourth year. So after about 3 weeks, I got up one morning, went out to the front gate for the school bus, and the school bus was driving, pulled up. And I just went, no, I'm done, finished. So school bus drove off. Dad was working in Shibnan's pub in Ballyfernan at the time. So I walked down to Ballyfernan in my school uniform. And he says, what are you doing here? And I says, I'm working with you now. So he goes, all right, mix up a bit of stuff there. So that was it. I had left school. So then what am I going to do? I didn't want to be a builder. I didn't want to be a plasterer. I knew that much, but so I worked with Dad for a while, and then I started applying for courses. So I never actually even wanted to be a barber, to be honest. So I applied to Anco, and I applied for pipe metal welding. Yeah, there you are. There you are. So on the Anco form, you obviously had to put in first preference, second preference, and I must have put hairdressing in it somewhere. But I got called for an interview for hairdressing in Finglas, in Dublin. So my thought process was, well, I've never done an interview, so I'll go and do the interview. I've no interest in this hairdressing, but sure, we'll go and do the interview and see what it is. But I was obviously very relaxed in the interview. So I got a place. So there was, I think there was 12, there was 12 places. So I got a place. So went home and I'm going like, geez, do I really want to be a hairdresser? Like, and then I went, well, I don't want to be a builder. It's a 6-month course. We'll give it a go. So I went back up to Finglas, took the course on, did the 6-month course. And there was a woman called Nancy Howley. She was our instructor. And she always said to me, she says, this probably isn't the best course for you now. You're going to be a barber. And I was like, I'm not going to be a hairdresser or a barber. I'm just, trying to figure out where I'm going. So, because I was only, 16. I was only young, like. So I was like, I don't know where I'm going. So I finished my course on a Friday. And Nancy was handing us all our certs. And she said, geez, Matt, you did really well. You got great results. And then she handed me a card. And I'm going, what's this? And she says, oh, that's the address of the barber shop you're starting in on Monday. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, I've got you a job in a barber shop on Talbot Street. And that's where you're going Monday. So I'm like, well, as far as I was concerned, I was going home this evening and that was it, back down the country, like. So anyway, I came home for the weekend and told my parents and probably family or whatever what was after happening. And then I thought, sure, I still have no other options or haven't figured out what I want to do. So back up to Dublin on the Sunday evening and I went into the shop on the Monday morning and thinking I was cock of the walk, sure I know everything. And then did my first day and I was like, oh my God, I know nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because the real world and the training world, as everybody knows, 2 different things. So anyway, I stayed there for 3.5 years, finished out my time and became a barber. And I came home for a weekend. Now the money was shocking, absolutely shocking. And the guy I was training for, even though he knew his stuff with barbering, he was mean. Like I was on pittance. So I came home, used to always have Monday off, came home and he rang me on the house phone on the Sunday and he says, you're opening the shop on Monday morning. I said, sure, I'm in Boyle, but Knockvicker. I said, like, how am I supposed to get back? And he says, I don't know, but you're opening the shop in the morning. And I says, but I'm in Knockvicker. I don't drive. I don't have enough money for a train because you don't pay me enough money. I used to hitch up and down, like. So he says, well, if you're not back up, he says, you're gone. So I said, right, I'm gone. So that was the end of Dublin. So
you had spent 3.5 years
in Dublin.
And then that came to a head.
Yeah, and that came to a head. And that was basically the end of my working in that barber shop. So I don't know who was right or who was wrong. I think we were probably both wrong, but there you are.
That's what led to finishing there.
So moved back home to Knockvicker. And I tried in a few barber shops in Sligo to get a job. And there was nothing doing, but barber shops in those days were just one-man things, and that's all they were. You know the way you go around towns now, big towns, and you see like 10 barbers working in a barber shop? That wasn't a thing. You'd probably see 10 barber shops.
And one in each.
Well, one in each.
Right.
You wouldn't see 10 people working in a barber shop. So that wasn't a thing at all. So I couldn't get a job as a barber, so they were doing up the courthouse at the time. So I got a job in there just as a general labourer in the courthouse. And I was there, I don't know, a few months maybe. And there was a gang of lads there. And working away, just doing anything I could to get a few pound. So one day I was walking down the town, and then Willie Lister had a solicitor's office straight opposite the Royal Hotel. And there was a shop downstairs with the windows all whitewashed. So I said, to myself. So I walked up the stairs in work gear, like I was after doing my day's work up in the courthouse. Walked up the stairs, knocked on the door, and I says to the secretary that was there, I says, like, does the guy here own the shop downstairs? And she goes, oh yeah, Willie Lister, yeah, he owns it, yeah. And I said, well, like, could I talk to him? And she goes, I'll see. So I went to Willie, and I says, would you rent me the shop? So I'm sure he looked at me like covered in rubble, and I said, I want to open a barber shop. And he goes, are you a barber? And I says, I am a barber. And he says, go on, I'll give you a go. So that was it. I went home. I says, I was after renting a barber shop. I hadn't like tuppence. Genuinely, I hadn't tuppence. Like I had my week's wages. That was it, like. So Dad and Mum, in fairness, went, oh, right. Luckily enough, my dad's a builder. Do you know what I mean? So in he came. We started doing up the shop. It was very, very simple at the time. It was basically, the necessities. And in fairness, the lads that were on the FOSS scheme up at the courthouse, like there was plumbers, electricians, carpenters and all that, they all came down and gave a dig out. Even Jerry Matimo arrived over, what's going on here? And we said, opening a barber shop. And he says, I have some seating, for waiting area. So he arrived over with some seating. And that was it. I opened the barber shop. So it wasn't that it was a big master plan.
It just kind of happened.
It just was like, boom. So within a week, I had a barber shop open. And that was it. Opened the doors.
And obviously 38 years later, I think.
38 years, yeah.
Yeah. So there was obviously no struggles or big hurdles in doing that back in those days. You just went in, can I open up a barber shop? You didn't have to kind of go down any legal route or any of that crack.
Well, if there was, I didn't know about them.
Seek forgiveness.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I just seen an empty shop. I opened a barber shop. End of story. And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did regret it several times since, but there you go. Yeah.
You're stuck at it.
Oh, yeah, stuck at it. It's, I suppose, more so in the early days, like when your rent day was Friday, like, and you'd be there like at 5 o'clock on a Friday evening going, I need 4 more haircuts to pay the rent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going like, where am I going? I can't drag 4 people in off the street and say, So it wasn't like it was an instant. Do you know what I mean?
It's just, as you said, you stumbled upon it and you made it work. And
yeah, it just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Basically.
But back in those days as well, most people or businesses would have struggled opening up. Like, I mean, as you know, Boyle would have been a way busier town and all that, but still,
yeah,
there was you'd have your normal struggles to overcome. And as you said, you had to find a rent some weeks or whatever. It was just
Absolutely.
a case of. So then, obviously, Matt, after being a barber for 38 years, what would you say would have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the trade over the decades?
Over the trade of barbering?
Yeah, like what's
or trade in general?
Well, no, the barbering maybe. What have you seen that's changed? Obviously, hairstyles have changed.
Yeah, they have changed, obviously. Yeah. Probably, I suppose the biggest change is that when I opened the shop, people got a haircut more out of necessity than style.
Good, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most people, like when they come in, it was like a good 3 months worth of hair.
Just chop it off.
They wanted a style then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But that style then was just let go for 3 months.
And come back.
Do you know what I mean? Then they come back and get another style.
Right.
Whereas nowadays, Like when somebody gets a hairstyle, they go, oh, I like that hairstyle. So they're back in 4 weeks to maintain that hairstyle.
Or even less.
Yeah, some people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more
yeah.
regular, just to
Absolutely.
keep it,
Yeah.
depending on the style, of course.
So, and I'm not saying that people weren't stylish. They were, but it was just, I suppose, different. It was, and living was different in the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Like we can all go to our wardrobe now, and you have an outfit for this, and you have an outfit for that, and like in the 80s, like you probably had 2 pairs of jeans. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And as you said, though, there was fashion and there was style back, obviously, in every decade.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was as much emphasis or attention for a style or a fashion as there is these days. There's more scrutiny, of course.
Oh, there is more scrutiny. And then social media and all that has blown fashion and style out of the water. Like,
yeah.
So there's a lot of people now, lads aren't as bad with Instagram as girls. As in, like, they're not throwing selfies up every single day. Look at my new hair, look at my new shirt, look at my new jeans, whatever. Do you know what I mean? But they're still more aware than they used to be.
Yeah. I think the social media aspect of things has completely changed that, the fashion, the style industry. People are more self-conscious because, people are, I always say this, like, young fellas, that are 18, 19 now are in way better condition physically than they were at my age. And that's only because of social media.
Some of them are.
Of course. Some.
Others sit at an Xbox eating.
Yeah, there is that whole different, but in general.
And that's a different lifestyle altogether.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's like there's a big crossroads in that you go this way or you go that way.
Yeah.
But again, social media, the gaming side of things. Remember, there was computer. I had a computer when I was young. I wasn't on it the way they're on it now.
Yeah.
The computer was in the room. Now you have like the devices where they can take from. So it's a whole different area where they're becoming more dependent on it.
Well, I think they're addicted to it. And if they're not addicted to gaming, they're addicted to their phone. Do you know what I mean? Or it's all geared to feed. Like somebody once said, I don't know, was it on the telly or whatever, but with social media, if you don't grab somebody within the first 7 seconds, you've lost them.
That's true. And that time is getting...
The attention span is minute.
That's why TikTok, I'm not on it, but...
I'm not either.
That's the whole thing of TikTok. You have like 2, 3, 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's why people just swipe.
Yeah.
And they're conditioning the brain then to get that dopamine effect for 4 seconds, next. 4 seconds, next. Max.
Absolutely.
And that's dangerous.
Oh, very. Absolutely. Very.
Yeah.
Very.
It's again, I think in years to come, when there's more data on this and children from a young age have developed into adolescence and, young adults.
It's only going to get worse.
It is. But
absolutely. It's never going to change.
No.
It's only going to actually feed on itself.
Mm.
And I think AI is going to actually explode it altogether.
It is. AI is like the internet, though. We can't turn it off.
Oh, I know that.
But I suppose it's not going to affect hairdressing. I don't think it's going to affect... Like, when I was just thinking about
my
this,
job, like.
No, but it's one of the few jobs that are potentially like brick and mortar businesses that I don't think, I can't see a way how AI is going to physically, replace, for example, barbers in the future.
I wouldn't say that it can't, because nothing is impossible.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? Who would have thought that you could 3D print a house?
Yeah. So...
that was impossible 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
So then to take that kind of line of thinking, it could then happen that you could pop into a barber where you don't meet anyone.
Yeah.
You sit down in the chair and this kind of machine comes in with the hands over it and you may be on a screen in front of you. This. It could happen.
It could. It may take 30, 40 years, but who's to say it wouldn't? But then that's not a barbershop anymore.
No.
That's only just a room.
Yeah.
Do you know?
But, there's so many industries that we've even seen that where even you go into an airport and you can basically get to the gate without meeting a single person.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and 10 years ago, if you said that to someone, they go, like, nah, you're mad. So I know it can be quick, and AI especially can be super quick. So what advice then, Matt, would you give to someone that's going into the barber trade today, given all the changes in technology, customer expectations, any stuff like that? Would you say it's a viable, this day and age where there's a lot more competition, a lot more?
Of course it's viable.
Yeah.
Of course it's viable. Every business is viable if you do it right, I think, unless it's a thing of the past. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, some things are a thing in the past, and that can't be changed because life has moved on. But yes, my one piece of advice for being a barber or being anything. So if you pick barber and you say, right, I'm going to be a barber, be the best barber you can be. Now, I think that took me a long time myself. And I had my shop open several years before that one sort of clicked with me, you know. And like even now, like you're on about TikTok, I'm not on TikTok, but I am on YouTube and I watch haircuts probably about 4 hours a week. Guys cutting hair and girls, because you're always striving to learn and be the best that you can be. And I'm not saying I'm the best barber in the world. I'm not by any means.
But you're saying you're keeping up with the trends and stuff.
But if you want to be a painter decorator, be the best painter decorator that you can be. You know, don't say, right, well, I've done that course and that's how good I am. Keep striving.
Yeah.
You know, be the best, no matter what it is.
Yeah. All walks of life.
All walks of life.
And so obviously then a few years ago, you migrated to a booking system.
Yeah, well, that was, it was brilliant, but it was sort of forced because of COVID. And I had tried it pre-COVID, but it was just a mess, an absolute mess. Because, you know, people ringing, people texting. Obviously, when you're cutting somebody's hair, you know, you can't answer the phone all the time. And then you're missing out. And they go, oh, well, I called and I left a message and I booked in for this time and blah, blah, blah. So that had to be shelved. But then we got shut down with COVID. So when we came back from COVID, we were only allowed one person in the actual chair at a time, and masks and all that other crack. But so I did. I adhered to, you know, all that.
Everything,
scrubbed the chair after every client, disinfected everything. But it did enable me to get the booking system that I have, like the app, and that took away all the messing. So basically, there's an app there for the shop. You go online, you book it. I have no interaction with it whatsoever. I don't have to look at it. It's just automatic.
Takes care of everything.
So
I was going to ask you that, like, were there any positive changes or adaptations during COVID? That was obviously
that was a game changer.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think I was reaching burnout with barbering pre-COVID. And it was just, you see, barbering was always traditionally men strolling in whenever they wanted for a haircut. So that meant lunchtime, that meant 6 o'clock. Like if your hours were 10 to 6, it was fine for 5 lads to walk into your shop at 5 to 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And
you're going, lads, I want something to eat. But it's not 1 o'clock yet.
Yeah.
So once they were inside the door, you had to do them.
Yeah.
And then because you're in a small town, you can't tell people to go away. Do you know what I mean? So like your days, you could spend from 10 o'clock till 5 to 1 sitting on your bum, doing nothing. And then 5 lads walk in the door. And then you could spend from 3 o'clock till 5 to 6 sitting on your arse and 5 lads walk in.
Yeah, there was no consistency or
but
predictability.
It's just every barbershop was the same. All over, I'd say, the world. And I think that came from the real old barber shops where they used to open till 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night. And that was basically because back in the day, you had no safety razors. So if you couldn't shave with a cutthroat, how do you shave? You had to go to the barber. So you know the way you'd see the barber with all the mugs?
Yeah.
So there's Matt's mug, there's Carlo's mug. There was a load of mugs. And then Saturday night, they'd go to the pub. When they got thrown out of the pub, then they went to the barber to get the shave for Mass on Sunday morning.
Ah, okay.
So that's why they used to
Interesting.
open so late on the Saturday night,
To cater for that crowd.
to cater for that crowd.
Yeah.
So they fed into it. Like the barbers actually fed into it by allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas they should have said, well, like we finish at 6:00 on a Saturday, and if you haven't been in for your shave, that's your tough.
Yeah.
But that's not the way barbers operated back in the day.
And then, Matt, during the COVID years, did you think that the situation was going to evolve quickly, or were there any moments that you feared that the future, like this could be it, like you mightn't get to open again anytime soon? And as you said, you were hitting burnout. Were you at any stage thinking, you know what, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to pack it in? Or was there any kind of thoughts like that?
Oh, I was like, when we closed first for COVID, so it was like, okay, this is hitting. It's not hitting too bad. I think it was the 14th of March I closed the first time. And I closed actually 3 days ahead of, we were told we were going to be closing on the 18th or whatever. And my thought process was, the quicker we close, the quicker we get back. Do you know what I mean? So to hit this head on, everybody close. So I closed 2 days early or 3 days early, whatever it was, thinking like this is going to take 2-3 weeks, flatten the curve, all that SH. We were told. And, but then it just went on. And then we got back, and then we were closed again. And it was just like, oh, what's going on here? And then you have Leo spouting lines from films at you. Like when you're sitting there going, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And you hear, spouting lines from a film.
Yeah.
Do you think this is funny? Like, and like you're at your wit's end. So, yeah, COVID wasn't good.
That's what I was going to say. Like,
it wasn't good.
Was there any memory from that era that really sticks out? Is that the one, or is there something else that like really you'll always remember?
Well, that was the end of me watching the news. I haven't watched the news since.
It did turn a lot of people off.
Oh yeah, I just went here. This isn't a joke, like.
Because people were literally, like, I know people that were almost rubbing their hands, looking forward to the news at 6:00. What are the numbers like? How many this? How many that?
That's what I was, but I wasn't looking for the numbers. I was looking for the numbers for them to go down.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I was actually going like, when am I get back to work? Yeah. And like, I was like, every single news I was watching, and all you heard was bad news, bad news, bad news. Yeah. It was just bad. It was, I think it was handled very, very badly. And I'd probably say worldwide, but I think our politicians at the time were just sort of, we're all right, sure. We're still, like, sure, they were still having their parties and all that crack, And I actually adhered to all the rules.
Most businesses
I didn't do any haircuts. I didn't do one haircut on the sly. I did lend my tools out. I lent them out to customers to cut their own hair.
That's not you.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't break any of the rules. But if it happened again or anything like, I'm afraid I'd be putting my two big fingers up at them and I'd be saying, arrest me now.
Yeah, I don't think they could never do what they did because people just wouldn't be able to withstand lockdowns again to the extent that they were. Businesses certainly wouldn't be able to cope.
Not at all.
No.
And whatever about the business side of it, the mental side of it.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you're told you're laid off tomorrow, but you might be back next week. And then next week, well, it might be next week. Like
the uncertainty is
it's the total uncertainty.
Yeah.
Like if they had said from day one, it's going to be 9 months, lads, then you can plan for 9 months.
But if they did say that, there'd be a revolt.
Well, I probably would have cut hair.
But this is it. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think it was to try and not cause panic. No, it's just going to be 2 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever. And then slowly push the boat to the extent then that people actually, this was normal.
Yeah. And it was.
It was.
Like I remember seeing a poor old man pulling up outside a supermarket. And he got out of his car in a hazmat suit, a white suit with Wellingtons on. Yellow rubber gloves up to his elbows and a face mask and then a face shield on him. Now, how scared was that man?
And that's it. The fear that was put into people was crazy.
Yeah. And then people dying on their own. In a room and you can't go into them. Why? Why can't you go into them? When you look back at it, like, what, are you going to give them COVID and they're dying?
Well, what people will say, Matt, is hindsight is great, but at the time
absolutely.
we didn't know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. The fear was out there. The fear was put into people.
Absolutely.
And it was designed that way. And it wasn't 9 months. It was a couple of weeks and keep pushing.
And it turned people against people.
It did.
Also.
Massively.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in towns, especially the size of Boyle and smaller, you're going to have that divide.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, that's just the way society is as well.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. In general, yeah.
Okay, Matt. So then obviously another big part of your life would have been involved in the music scene. So the string records, as Brendan McGee talked about on his episode, he went into the kind of the history of that, but give us because you were involved in the string records. So what was your memory and part in that?
Right. So basically you're talking early 90s, I think. I'm nearly sure it was the early 90s, but I always loved music. So I didn't start playing guitar until I was 20. I always wanted a guitar. Every birthday, every Christmas, can I have a guitar? Can I have a guitar? Can I have a guitar? But obviously I'm the youngest in the family, and there was, I don't know, was there fiddles and pianos and all that bought for the others and then left there to gather dust. So I never got a guitar. So I was on the bridge at the time, and I went down to Bernie Flaherty and I bought a guitar. No, sorry, I tell a lie. I borrowed John Ryan's half-size guitar first, and the strings on it were like 2 inches away from the fretboard. So I started learning a few chords and that in the shop. Not very well. And then I went, but I'm going to master this. I was like tick. I was like, I'm going to master this. I don't know if I I don't think I have mastered it, but I still play. But so then I went down to Bernie Flaherty and I bought a guitar for 300 quid, which at the time was animal money. It was like, be like $2,000 now.
Yeah.
And then my reasoning with that would be, I could have bought a guitar for 50 quid. But if I bought one for 50 quid, I'd have no heat on it. The fact that I had spent so much on it was like, I am going to learn you. Do you know what I mean? No matter how hard. So I used to be sitting in the shop when it was quiet, playing my guitar. And then Derek Colbeck picked up the guitar at the same time, or maybe a little bit before me. So we figured out that we were sort of both on the same wavelength and we liked the same music, David Bowie and all that sort of stuff. And we used to jam together or whatever. And of course, we used to have an odd pint. So we used to rock into Kate Lavin's and we'd be in there having pints. And the next thing, we'll get the guitars. So we'd go and we'd get the guitars. And it wasn't gigs. It was just lads having the crack, singing songs, probably very badly. But it was great crack. It was like, It really was great crack. And then it grew from, and it probably was more than me and Derek from the start. That sounds like it was just me and Derek. It wasn't like, do you know what I mean? It was a really organic thing. But I remember vividly sort of learning songs from Derek. And Derek is a lyrical, I don't know what he's like. He has a memory like an elephant. Like even now, if we were sitting down and I said, play that song we used to play in Lambs, he'll sing it. He has the lyrics, like he doesn't forget lyrics. I don't know how. It's just uncanny. But then it was just an acoustic thing, and like there used to be blood on the guitar.
Is that where the name, because Brendan kind of said something about you be kind of smashing the strings.
I regularly went through 6 strings on the guitar. Regularly. In a night, like.
Oh, right.
But I wasn't playing a guitar. I was beating the guitar to death. Like, that's what I was actually doing.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, another string. Oh, another string. And then you go, another string. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was Frank Egan. I think when he came into Lavin's one night, he went, oh, string records. So, yeah, and there were several members that came in and out, and it was just a very organic thing, but it was great.
And you played weddings and stuff, was it? Or
no, not really weddings.
You didn't know? Okay,
no,
just
I know we weren't a wedding band. No.
But you know, way back then as well, there wouldn't have been as much emphasis on being a wedding band, but you obviously didn't play weddings anymore.
No.
Right.
No.
So just gigs in the pub and...
Gigs in the pub, yeah. We used to play Grahams on the Crescent. I think we had a residency there every Friday. So we'd lug all the speakers up the Crescent, no cars or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think Lenihan was his name. And he hated us. He absolutely hated us. I said to him one night, I said, like, why do you bring us back every Friday? Because he says, when you're here, he says, that till goes ding, 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 ding. And that's all I care about. But he did. He genuinely hated us.
But he didn't mind the money.
Oh, he didn't mind the money he was making, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had sort of, I suppose, a local following.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And then didn't you have then a reunion a couple of years ago down in Daly's?
Oh, we did.
Was that the old string records, or was that a kind of a mash of...
No, that was string records.
Ah.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So that was great crack.
I was going to say what date was that, but I know you're not good at dates.
Pre-COVID, it was 2019.
It's not that far ago.
No, it's not that far ago.
Yeah.
So,
and you probably were involved in a few other bands, but that was the main kind of one.
Yeah, that was the main one. Yeah.
And then leading then into your involvement, Matt, with the Boyle Musical Society. You were involved in that for a number of years.
I was.
And when did you first, or roughly, late 90s, early 90s?
Oh, yeah, around that.
Yeah, okay.
Around, I couldn't even tell you the first one I went into, but I used to hang around with Geordie May and a few of them. And Geordie was in the musical the year before. I think Punches McGee, another one. Because at that time, you have to remember now in the early 90s, there was an awful lot of sort of 20-somethings around the town. And all the pubs were busy. Do you know what I mean? And there was crack in the pubs and fun in the pubs. So you had I won't say wide circle of friends, but you had a wide circle of associates. So no matter what pub you went into, you knew somebody in the pub and you'd have a bit of crack. And then I suppose playing the music, that sort of got you to know everybody as well, or them getting to know you. So anyway, you know, the musicals were going on at that time, but then you'd see them out in the pub, a gang of them, and you're going, why are they all out? Oh, they're in the musical, they were at a rehearsal. And I was going, this sounds like good crack to me. So I joined the musical. But I said, Frank O'Mahony, obviously, and others, and Keelty and others. But Frank, I suppose, was the main director at the time. And Frank always had a way of getting what he wanted. He just had that knack, or some people would probably call it another thing, but but that was Frank.
Yeah.
But so I joined the first musical with the intention of being way up in the background in the chorus, staying back. No dancing, no singing, no acting. Just waving in the background, basically, because that's what Geordie did. So I was going, if Geordie gets away with it, I get away with it. So when I went in, I said to Frank, I said, I'm not going dancing now, I'm not going singing. And he goes, that's all right, that's fine, Matt, no problem. So we're about 4 or 5 weeks into the rehearsal, and the next thing, there was one lad and he couldn't dance, but he was the first man up for every dance. And then Frank started saying, Tommy out, Matt in. So I was hooked into dancing unknown to myself. And when he said it like in front of like 20 or 30 people, you can't turn it down. Like, you know, that's the way he did it.
Yeah.
So that was my first musical, and I was mostly in the background, waving and, you know.
And did you ever take a more prominent role in the musicals? Like,
God, yeah.
You did. And was there any one that stands out that was a favourite or that you particularly liked?
As I said, Frank had a way of getting what he wanted. So I think, did Oliver come before?
No, you're asking the wrong man
here.
here.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, he asked me to do Bill Sykes and Oliver, and I says, yeah, I can do that. That's no problem. I can do that. Because even though he sings, I wouldn't consider myself to be a good singer, but even though Bill Sykes sings, he's rough and he's tough, so I can roar them. I don't necessarily have to sing them. I can roar them out. Do you know what I mean? So you get away with roaring. And then all I have to do is just be an evil fecker.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just be a bad man.
Yeah.
So just be rough, grow your beard out. And just, man. So I said, yeah, I can do this. So I actually loved being Bill Sykes. But that was great crack. And
then were there any, when I was talking to Joe O'Donnell, who's been, I think said he was involved in every single one.
I'd say he has.
40, I think it's 40 this year. Yeah. But anyway, he was saying there was a lot of messing going on and there'd be like stunts being pulled both on and off stage. And do you remember any of them? Because I'd say it was full of messing back in those days.
Oh,
yeah. Get away with it now.
Oh, you wouldn't get away with it now.
But was there any ones that you can remember, or was there any one done to yourself?
No, there was never. I don't think there was one done to me. If it was, it wasn't that funny because I don't remember it. But yeah, there was. You'd have lads having to go out on the stage like with a rucksack on their back or something, and the lads would have it full of concrete blocks.
That's one I heard. All right,
Yeah.
that it was.
The other one was, I think Joanne Daly had to sing a song sitting on a swing, and it was all lovely and sweet and flowers down the ropes, and she sat there all pretty, but the boys had drenched the seat on her. So when she sat on the seat, she got a wet arse, and she still had to be Miss Sweet. And this is like mid-show.
Yeah.
So
Stay
the show has to go on.
Yeah.
So I think there was another one with a bed. Was Adrian McKenna in bed on stage? And there was a girl supposed to get into bed beside him, but one of the lads ran out on the stage and jumped into the bed and beside him. And it's just, yeah. But there was drink involved.
Yeah, of course.
There was now I'm not saying we got drunk, but there was always a few drinks
Yeah.
And then the lads always had cans in the dressing room. And then the girls, of course, would be coming in to check our outfits. As in, where's the drink, lads? Where's the drink, lads?
But that's what it was known for. Like, you did the show, you had the crack.
Oh, yeah.
But it was always, them two went hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely.
And the big then finale had the big, even though every night, I believe, there was a night in a pub, a different pub.
There was a night after every rehearsal.
Yeah.
Never mind the week of the show.
And I was going to ask then, obviously, I mean, these days now, things are done differently. The production is done differently.
Oh, it is, yeah.
That whole era has changed. It's more, would you say, more serious, or just that you wouldn't be able to do any of that kind of stuff these days? You wouldn't get away with it, I suppose.
No, you wouldn't get away with it. And then times have changed as well, because there's, you can't drink and drive. Do you know what I mean? You can't smoke indoors. Do you know what I mean? The whole thing has changed. So people from the musical, an awful lot of them mightn't be from town, so they have to drive home. So if you say, right, well, we're going to Dodds tonight for a pint, you'd probably have 3 from the town and say, all right, sound.
Yeah.
And the rest all have to drive home. So I suppose that changed a lot of the dynamic.
Of course, yeah.
As well, you know. And then I suppose the shows have got far more professional as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then, Matt, another project you were involved in was the Ono Somalia in 1992.
Yes.
Can you give us a bit of thing on that you remember? What was that experience like?
So that was Sean Nicholson. He had a cottage out in Tunnytaskin. So he converted. Well, it started with Donny O'Connor doing the song "Oh No Somalia," and then when that was released, I think that did quite well. And I think Sean Nicholson then says, "Why don't we do an album, lads?" And at that time on Boyle, there was musicians everywhere.
Yeah, there was.
And there was bands everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So we were asked, would we do a song for it? So we wrote a song called Mr. Misery, I think.
Okay.
Derek's doing, because Derek wrote it, so he's allowed to call it what he wants. So we recorded that. I think we had that recorded in Porrick Butler's house out in the Carrick Road. We had our own little studio out there, a makeshift thing, but that's what we used. And then we had to record it out in Tunnytaskin in Sean Nicholson's. So that was actually great crack. And Brendan O Dowd then was the main producer, and a big old reel-to-reel tape machine. And the crack that was out there. And then obviously the others doing their songs and everybody chipping in and all that. And even the ghosts. There was a night we were out there really late, and the next thing Brendan goes, "Did you hear that, lads?" And we're going, "No. I'm telling you, there's a ghost. There's a ghost. There's a ghost. There's a ghost somewhere." I still don't know. But yeah, basically Sean knocked holes through walls and everything in the house, to get mics into different rooms, and it was a great experience.
And that was re-released then, wasn't it, a couple of years ago again, I believe?
No, it wasn't really re-released. I think Sean was on about doing a 25th anniversary of it. Okay. Doing a gig. Because we did a big launch night in Cleo's when it was all done.
Because it got to number 7 in the charts, didn't it? I think it was number 7. It was definitely in the top 10.
Yeah, it was in the top 10, I think. Yeah. And then we had a night to hand over the money.
Right.
Was it the launch night or the hand over the money? That I'm not sure of.
Yeah. But it was a big project, though. I mean, back then, I have vague memories of it. I always remember the name, but
Yeah.
again, I didn't know who.
I still
was
have a tape
involved.
somewhere
Yeah,
of it, of the whole thing. I've nothing to play it on, but I have a tape.
and that was for the proceeds were all going to Somalia.
Yeah.
At that stage, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting on then, Matt, to maybe kind of modern day stuff. Like, what do you think, or not modern day, but like, what do you think future generations from now should remember about this period in boys' history? Because obviously we're going through a lot of changes, as do all periods of time. But like, what do you think people in the future should remember about, 2024? Obviously, COVID will always be there in the history books, but is there anything else that stands out?
See, I think you have to forget to move on. If you should never forget the past, but you can't live in the past. Just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean that it should always be done that way. I wouldn't look back even on myself now and say, well, right, in 1996, this is how I used to live. Maybe I was better off then. Like, you can't think like that. You have to think of where you're living at the moment. So I would be more a now person than a past person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. And what do you think makes Boyle unique compared to other towns of similar size, for example?
Right. Well, at the moment, I think it's on the verge of regeneration big time. Like, we do have a lot of empty buildings. They're sitting there since I opened on Green Street, which was 1993. That's a long time. And no effort whatsoever to do anything with them. I think something has to change with the law in Ireland that you can't leave a building in the middle of a town sitting for more than 5 years. I think it should be compulsory purchase off you. And I know people around this town that have property sitting for years and years and years. And then you meet them out and they're going, oh, yes, your life is great. But they're strangling the town. Every one of them. They're strangling the town. And I think, Boyle, if you could get some of those buildings released or, back into circulation, even as just private accommodation. Now, I would have better ideas than that. But even if that was all they were turned into, it would be a much better town. It's a fabulous town. Like, I'm proud to say I live and work in Boyle. Really am. Like, the people around Boyle are solid. They're genuinely solid. It's a great place to rear your kids. It's safe. It has great potential. It's beautiful. Look at the river running through the middle of it. Like, they've done up the pleasure grounds. They're doing up the lawn. The mill is going to be massive and amazing. Do you know what I mean? There isn't a word about that, but that is going to be amazing. So it has a lot of positives going for it. But to me, the one stranglehold is the buildings that
if they're empty, there's nothing can be done with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it puts a stranglehold, kind of like almost like quicksand that we can't move forward.
Absolutely, yeah. But I just can't figure out the logic of somebody that owns a property and just leaves it sitting there and walks by it or drives by it once a week or once a day or whatever and goes, that's grand. Like, what? It doesn't prove anything to them, or it doesn't prove anything to the town or the regeneration of the town. Like, I'd feel guilty if I owned a house or a building like that in the town. Like, flog it. What are you holding on to it for?
Yeah,
or do something with it. Like, if you've no intention of doing something with it, sell it. Let somebody else do something with it. But why leave it sitting there for 30 years?
Because now is the right time, I always say, for selling property, especially houses.
Yesterday is the right time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Was it the right time 30 years ago? Was it the right time 20 years ago? When is the right time? Now.
And favourite thing about Boyle?
People.
Yeah, you kind of said that already.
People.
It's the people.
Yeah. People, they're friendly. And like, I've seen it down through the years, people moving into Boyle, newcomers. And they're just accepted. They're accepted.
Yeah.
So it's a friendly.
It was Christy Rinn that said in his episode, I can't remember the name of the two ladies up in the pub where the railway Matt Smith's used to be, but people used to go in there and have a drink, whatever, and the two women, but they said it was Boyle was a stranger's paradise.
Yeah.
Because we were so welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so that kind of summed it up well.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that have disappeared from Boyle that you wish were still around today?
The shops. All the shops.
The old kind
You know, every second door was either a shop or a pub. I think there was 27 pubs when I opened my shop in 1986, and we're down to
5, I think, is it?
6.
Oh, Wynn's opened up.
Yeah,
now,
Wynn's opened up.
So 6.
So we're down to 6. And I'm not saying you should live your life or revolve around, but that's only an example. So that's like 6 from 20. There's 21 buildings that are
no longer,
pubs.
And as you said, though, back in those days, there was business for every one of them pubs.
Absolutely. And then you had D.H. Burke's and you had Christy Wynn's. And like if you went through every street, there was all these little shops.
Dimpton Moriarty's.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Peter
They all
Phelan's.
had Phelan's, you know, Bob Fair's, all those little shops. They're all part and parcel and the heartbeat of a town.
Mm.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And look, they're gone and they never will be back because times have changed.
Yeah.
Do you know
exactly.
what I mean? You can't expect all them to come
No.
back. It's not.
And then, Matt, what about memorable characters that you've come across over the years?
Oh, God,
I know there's so many of them.
Oh, God, yeah.
Any one of them stands out.
So you had, what was his name? Conlon. I think he used to work for the county council. So Mattimo's used to be our pub on a Saturday evening. I think I used to call him, or we used to call him Wirebrush Conlon, because he had spiky, short, like a crew cut haircut. He was a small little man, who worked for the council, but he used to come into Mattimo's and we'd be all playing pool. And there'd be, I don't know, 25 coins around the pool table waiting for a turn. And of course, we'd let him on the table. And then you'd let him win a few games, because you knew when he bet him, he was going to get bowled. So, but then he'd get the few drinks in him and he'd get awful slow. So it was, somebody had to beat him because he wasn't any good at pool, but somebody was like, okay, Matt, take him off now. Do you know what I mean? He's had his time. And then he'd get tick with you and then the row would start. So that was one. You had Sonny Regan, of course, always on the bridge, eating the sandwich out of the pocket. Always on the bridge.
He used to be fiery enough as well, from what I hear.
Oh, God, yeah. But if you handled him right, he was sound. Yeah, it was only, he sort of had to get what is his way or make him feel like he got his way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Frank Mahan, gentleman. He used to have his little bet on a Saturday morning in Wynn's. He'd be in Wynn's and the bookies was only around the corner.
Right next to it, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Frank would be there with the bicycle and he'd be whistling his little tunes outside the door, having his fag. And whistling away or singing away to himself, just a pure gentleman, and always smiling. Just always smiling. Nice man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to chirp in with? Or have we covered most of?
Well, I think we've covered it all, have we?
I think so, yeah.
And more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Matt, for recording with me. It's been brilliant hearing your stories about your time in Dublin and also your time in Boyle. And you've contributed a lot to the town. And I know listeners will love hearing your perspective. So thanks again, Matt.
No problem.